SAS is not holding the rocket in place. Okay, we're going to need to do an abort. This is not going very well. Oh no, we're good. We're good. Okay, so that wasn't so. All right. So we've spent a bit of time trying to work out some of the bugs in the Mercury 3 craft. One of the things that we've changed is shift the RCS pods up to where the resulting sort of stub of the aircraft that we're going to, stub of the spacecraft that we're going to put into orbit is going to live. We've also added some staging and a small engine, so we're going to use the small engine to actually park us into the 100-kilometer orbit that we want. The rest of this craft will get us into about the right place, and then we'll just use that little engine that's hiding under that part there to get us into our nice stable circular orbit. We'll also use that engine for deorbit, since we don't have retro rockets. There are no stock retro rockets, unfortunately, in KSP. So 3A looks like it's going to get us at least into some sort of orbit. We seem to have enough fuel to do this, so let's see whether or not we can get somewhere. Now, as you can see, it's kind of become night, so there's going to be a night launch just for amusement. This time we're just going to, max thrust the whole way, pitch over at 10,000 meters, and see if we can't kind of get as close as we can to some sort of decent orbit. So here we go. Now you can see that the launch is even slower this time. We've got extra weight in the form of an extra decoupling ring and an engine and a fuel tank for that engine. So there's quite a bit more weight than there was in the the Mercury 1 and Mercury 2 flights, and the first attempt at Mercury 3. So this is quite a bit bigger spacecraft. So we're just going to climb on to about 10,000 meters, same as we've done before. Nothing terribly exciting at this point. Now the intention here is we will burn all of the fuel in the first stage in order to get us to an altitude where we can cruise up to about 100 kilometers before firing our smaller engine in our second stage to actually put us into that circular orbit. So we're not going to do anything tricky involving throttle control. We're just going to let this thing power away. We've already used nearly half our fuel, so yeah, we're slowly getting to that halfway point. We're not even at 6,000 meters, we're just about past 6,000 now. So it's a lot of fuel that you have to carry up. You use a lot of fuel to carry the fuel up that you need for the next stage. And the consumption rate you'll see here is actually falling. And part of the reason why that is falling is because they become more efficient the higher altitude they are. So we're going to pitch over now. We're going to pitch over about 10 degrees. We're not going to pitch over a huge amount. We want the rocket to gently come towards us. There's no point kind of pitching over too quickly. We get the most amount of acceleration when the rocket is facing the direction that we want to go. So we're going to pitch over a little bit more. Just let the rocket track us. That's not really what I wanted to do. So yeah, we're just going to continue to let the rocket track us. We're at a reasonable height now. Yeah, we're going to run out of fuel pretty soon. So we're already going nearly 1,000. So more than that now. So I think we'll actually be pretty good. To make our orbit. So that's our first stage expended. Let's just see where we're going to come out. So that's not bad actually. So the peak of our orbit, suborbital arc, is going to be 123,000 meters. That's actually not too bad considering we're kind of doing this by guesswork. We're going to add a maneuver there so we can circularize our orbit. So we'll just try and set that up now. 290, 123, that's not really... We want to try and make that, yeah, that's a bit better. 117, 129. Can we, 114, 127. We can probably get that a little bit closer. 126, 111. Yeah, that looks pretty good. So that's the waypoint that we'll use. That's coming up in 1 minute. We're going to have to gain nearly 1100 meters per second. You see this blue marker, this is where we need to aim in order to achieve this. We're just going to jettison that previous stage because we don't really need it now. It'll make it easier to achieve that burn with less mass to move. So we'll just turn on our RCS so we can just thrust into the right location to perform this burn. Still more than a minute out from it. One of the catches is that we don't really know what the duration is going to be for this burn, so it'll be a little bit hard to judge when to begin the burn, but my guess would be is that it's probably going to take, with the weakness of this engine, pretty close to a minute or more to do the burn. So we're actually going to start it at about T-minus 30 to give us a reasonable run up. So that burn point's coming up pretty soon. So we'll begin it now. So yeah, our estimated is about a minute. That's kind of what we expected. So we're just going to burn for another 50 seconds or so. We're just coming up on our node point now, so this should be fairly close to 30 seconds or so through the estimated burn. So we're about 5 seconds late on our burn. Not much we can do about that. We've used already half of the fuel in the second stage in order to achieve this, so this is going to be pretty tight. 14 seconds left on this burn. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have... we should have circularized that now. Let's just delete that waypoint. So we've got 123 and 82. 82 is a little low, but we can live with that. So we've now managed to achieve an orbit. We've got very little fuel left in our upper stage, but we have at least managed to achieve an orbit, 82 kilometers, what was the other end? 123 by 82. We can probably fix that on another pass once we go around Apophis again. So that shouldn't be too difficult. That's, however, 31 minutes away, so that's going to take a while. So there we are. We're now in orbit. We can pretty much sit there forever now. There's no particular reason why we can't stay there forever. It'll eventually decay a little bit, particularly if we get into the atmosphere. We'll manage to decay as we bounce off the atmosphere. It'll do atmospheric braking and therefore will eventually decay. But this will probably hold in this orbit pretty well for quite a while. You can see we've also got the first stage is busily tracking down and falling back into the atmosphere. So this is a pretty good result. I think what we might do is give us a couple of orbits, and then but we can just warp through those. Let's establish a couple of orbits just to prove that we can actually, that we really are orbiting. It looks pretty good. We do get quite low, 82,000 meters. That is quite low, but we do actually appear to be orbiting. So it's not too bad a result. So we're going to do this a couple of times just to prove that our orbit's not changing a significant amount. 123, 82, 654 looks pretty stable. So now the next challenge will be to try and actually deorbit and get into some kind of good landing site. This is a little bit... thankfully the game doesn't actually care too much about where you land, so you don't have too many restrictions. But what we'll do is we'll set up a waypoint, add maneuver, and we'll burn quite a lot to try and sort of aim for the ocean that's just to one side. So it should be fairly close to that coast would be good. So we will see how that goes. We've got to bleed 622 meters per second. It's about 4.5 minutes away, that burn. Let's see where the direction for the burn is. That's interesting. It's not on exactly our it's not. That's interesting. It's not exactly the opposite of the direction of travel. That's not quite what I expected. But never mind. So we're just going to fast forward through this a little bit. Nodes coming up in a couple of minutes. Oh, we completely missed that. Whoops. Oh, we can't actually. So we'll just burn anyway. We're more than a minute past our node, but hey, this should be enough to deorbit us. I don't know whether it'll be enough to deorbit us in the right place, but no, we're going to go long by the looks of it. That's a bit of a shame. Never mind. Yeah, so we're going to go long. But that's okay, so we'll discard the rest of this spacecraft and re-enter with just our capsule. Alright, that's right, you can't actually do anything with it. So we're just going to plow away. It's going to slowly deorbit. And then come in through the atmosphere. Our launch site is there. Does look suspiciously like the right piece of land. No. Where is our launch site? It's somewhere along this coast, I think. If I remember right. So it's a good thing that we haven't got re-entry heat, as otherwise this probably wasn't exactly the best kind of re-entry into the atmosphere, but hey, we've gotten somewhere with it. We'll pop the chute and then let it fall the rest of the way. Should be about 400 meters. It will pop open. So there we are. We've managed to get it to pop open and safely return to Kerbal. So there is a couple of orbits of Kerbal in a 2-stage craft. So we at least have some basic idea how we can get into orbit now. It wasn't the cleanest or most. It wasn't the most clean orbit. 82 by 127 is that's a pretty lumpy orbit. You don't need perfectly circular orbits. Just as long as you can get to some kind of orbit that's outside the atmosphere, you're doing pretty well. So we are nice and safe on Kerbal. We have indeed landed just outside the launch site. There's the launch site. Yeah, so we've landed not very far from the launch site. That's a pretty decent result in the end. So we only 5G. That was pretty good, and none of the parts collided with each other. So that's quite a reasonable outcome. So Mercury 3A managed to get orbit. I think the next challenge now will be to try and do a docking in orbit. Or at least a rendezvous. That's the next big challenge, is a rendezvous. We're going to need a much bigger craft. We're going to need to launch a target to rendezvous with, potentially to dock with. So that'll be coming up in the next episode. Thanks for watching.